Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Apolla's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and tonight I am still traveling, still not back in the studio. I was in Arizona last week, and now I'm on the East Coast. I just had a little New York City excursion, and now I'm in an undisclosed location on the East Coast. So, yeah, I have this boring background behind me, so just ignore it. If this is your first time watching one of my live shows, just know that I'm normally in a really cool spaceship that I created myself, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to be back in there next week. So, thanks for joining me tonight, everyone. And, I'm really excited about tonight's show. I have Michael from DarkHour Paranormal on. So, go ahead and throw your ghost stories and paranormal questions into the chat, and let's get a conversation going. I'm really excited about tonight's show because Michael is a fellow panelist of mine on Third Phase of Moon. If you don't know about Third Phase of Moon, they are a YouTube channel that shows all the craziest UFO footage and some amazing interviews. And, they got like a little docu-series going that's on Amazon Prime, which we are a part of. I believe it's UFO Report. And they got some amazing documentaries out too. That's by the Cousins brothers. So tonight I'm going to have Michael, my fellow panelist from Third Phase of Moon, on. And basically what we do is kind of do these like different round tables where this started around a little over a year, I believe a year and a half ago or so. We started doing these round tables where they would just bring us on and have us discuss these different stories, different like UFO videos, and we just kind of give our opinions on them, and it was a lot of fun. So we're going to talk about that tonight, and we're going to get into some paranormal stuff. But before I get into all that, I just want to thank everyone who is joining me on Aftermath FM. It's great to be a part of the Aftermath family, and I'm having a lot of fun having a show on this network. So thanks for listening in. And for those of you who are on Aftermath, listening in on Aftermath right now and are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Apollo's Odyssey. And if you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, but you are not listening on Aftermath FM, then please check out Aftermath FM. It's an app. You can just download it, and I believe it's like $6 a month or something like that. I should know. I don't know why I don't know this, but it's a really amazing radio app, and there's a lot of really awesome hosts on there. So I definitely recommend checking that out. It looks like we got Third Phase of Moon in the chat tonight, so that's awesome. Thanks, guys, for listening in and watching. So I hope to be a part of a show soon. The trailer, if you guys haven't seen the trailer that they kind of came out with of all of us panelists, it was really freaking cool. I mean, I felt pretty awesome after watching that. It made me feel like, wow, I look awesome, and so does everyone else there. So we had a lot of fun filming that when the Cousins brothers came out to LA about a month or so ago. So really exciting stuff. All right, so before I get into this with Michael and bring him on, I'm going to share with everyone my art, which is on shamanspears.com. I do not have any sponsors for my network yet. And so, by the way, if you would like to sponsor me and help keep me going here, and if you'd like me to advertise your products on an amazing radio network, then please go ahead and check out apollasteria.com. That is my name.com. And there's a contact section. You can reach me on there on the website. But besides that, basically what keeps me going right now is my art, which is on shamanspears.com. And these are my uniquely handcrafted energy chilling devices, which I invented myself, called Shaman Spears. They are all they're basically like a mix between wands and spears. They're all filled with copper coils, crystals, magnets, and sand I collect from sacred places around the world. I actually paint them all with crop circles that have been found around the world, and they're all charged onto an energetic collective. People often ask me, what do I do with these? Or what can you do with these? Besides, if you don't know much about energy work and you're not interested in using them for that, my favorite thing to do with them is actually go hiking with them. I never go hiking without a spear. A lot of people like to joke that every picture I post on social media is of me carrying a stick on top of a pile of rocks, aka a mountain with a shaman spear. So pretty funny. But seriously, if anytime I go on a hike or an adventure, which I'm doing constantly all the time, I always have a shaman spear in hand, and I make anyone who's with me also carry a shaman spear. So definitely go ahead and check these out. I have a few left of this collection, and they are almost sold out, and I'm working on a new collection that is really freaking cool. So stay tuned for that. And what else do we have here? Oh, we have these amazing Moon Maiden headdresses, which I created myself, that are pretty cool. These are just for fun. They don't really have any purpose except they look really awesome. So I only made 5 of these, and they can fit to any head size, and they're super lightweight. So definitely check those out. Also, I have my I Believe in Humans t-shirts with flying saucers on them that actually have the show logo on the back. So those are pretty sweet. And I have tons of organite creations. I actually have some new ones I need to put up on here. I don't know why I haven't put them up on here yet. So I definitely need to get around to doing that. So definitely go ahead and check these out. And it's basically like making a donation to me or my show, but getting some free art in return. So would really appreciate it. Also, if you wanted an autograph from me, sometimes people ask that. The spears are actually all autographed as well. So let's go ahead and bring Michael on here. Oh, looks like we're having some problems on Aftermath right now. So let me make sure that's working out okay. All right, let me know if you guys still hear me on Aftermath. And thanks, Elena, for the super sticker. Really appreciate it. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm absolutely fantastic, Apolla. Thank you for having me on the show. How are you this evening?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm still traveling on the road. I have been for quite some time. I hope I can have a break pretty soon here and get back in the studio. But yeah, it's good to finally have you on. I know we've been trying to work this out for a few weeks now, so we finally got it going, and it's good to see you. I know we actually met in person for the first time, I believe it was a month or two ago,
Mm-hmm.
when the Cousins brothers came to LA, and that was definitely a lot of fun.
That was amazing. Just the effort and the vision brought to manifestation that Blake and Brent had, initially. It could have gone many different ways. And along the path to getting to where we were all in the same physical location, there were certainly hiccups on my end, on Rich's end. Other people experienced their own troubles. But the point is that we all pulled through. There was an energy that had said, hey, you guys need to be where you need to be. And as long as you're receptive, we're going to bring you there one way or another. And sure enough, there were plenty of times that I would, what you might call, trusted in the universe. And again, knew that I was supposed to be there and that I would be, although I didn't know how I'd get there at certain points. But long story short, it was a fantastic outing. Meeting all of you guys really made a huge difference, I think, in respect to the relationships that we all forge and are, continuing to build with each other. Because yes, you guys see us on the shows and, we work professionally with each other, but it goes much further than that within this group of folks. We are very close friends, and within that, we've reached a dynamic that allows us to build and grow even more so because we have such a depth of relationship.
Definitely, definitely. I was so grateful to come on and be a part of the third phase of Mirror team about a year ago, I believe now. And, we definitely have a lot of fun, and it was really cool filming in LA when they all came in. So I'm really excited about that. And our new trailer that came out was so awesome.
Oh man, I was watching that at least for the first 10 times that they had premiered it in one way or another, and I was getting that frisson effect. I was getting the chills from the music, from the visuals, the cadences that they were instilling into that particular piece. It was just masterfully put together. And, maybe we sit here and we talk a lot about the accolades that these guys deserve, but I'll be honest, out of all these people that are doing what they're doing, these guys are the hardest working bunch that I know, and they certainly deserve that recognition.
Oh yeah, I mean it's crazy how much they put out there. They're coming out like with new videos like daily. It's totally insane. And sorry, right now I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the Aftermath.
It's okay.
App. They're saying that there isn't a connection. So I just took out my headphones. You got Mike Sherwin. Please let me know if that's coming through okay now when I take my headphones off. We'll have to talk about that after the show. Okay, so yeah, everyone's saying the audio is good on the YouTube app, but I don't know if you're actually listening in on the network. So I just took my headphones out, so I'm hoping maybe that makes things better. So let me know, Mike Sherwin, just let me know in the comments here. Sorry about that, everyone. So you host a paranormal radio network, and I'd like to hear more about that. So can you give us all a little bit of your background? I know you do some energy work as well, and what you get into on your show.
Absolutely. At this point in the stage here, I'd say that DarkHour Paranormal, as the moniker, is probably a misnomer. We're very well rounded in that channel wherein we approach everything esoteric, ufology oriented, cryptozoology, archaeology, and anything in between those margins we do advance forward with. You could talk about health and well-being, you could talk about energy healing, you could talk about mediumship, clairvoyance, near-death experiences, you name it. We're really encompassing all of those subjects within the channel. Now, the funny thing is, and of course I have my own eclectic personality and have interest and curiosity in all of these aspects of the field, in the end, all of these sort of connect in one way or another, and probably closer in way of this connection than perhaps something else that you might call apophenia. All right. So, for example, if you have near-death experiences, you have this etheric element to your experience, which then can be, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be networked into what the paranormal may actually be. At the end of the day, yes, we have certain experiences, but I think that what we understand as the paranormal, thinking it's just ghosts and perhaps sentient entities or residual resonance left within material, I think this is always present in every location. It's just a matter of your perception walking into certain fields. There may be a catalyst which affords you the opportunity to feel something that's a little bit thin behind the veil, way of trauma, or something that may have happened very impactfully on the site itself. Again, leaving that resonance within the soil and trees, materials, stones, whatever it may be. I still think that we are some sort of trigger walking into those particular areas. But again, if you go anywhere, there has been energy living there, and there is still energy living there. We're talking about different dimensions these days and how frequencies overlay and overlap to create what we understand as the third dimensional reality.
That is really incredible. And I just want to go ahead and do a test here. I'm trying to work this out with my producers right now. I don't know why the sound isn't coming through on Aftermath, so I'm just waiting to see if they can hear me. Being a Virgo, Mercury retrograde really affects me. I've been having
as well.
such a difficult. Oh, you're a Virgo too. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot. You guys, everyone out there, me and Michael here have the same birthday. I mean, not the same year, I believe, but the exact same date. So that's really crazy. And yeah, in the comments here, I'm looking. I don't know if you guys are only listening on YouTube, but I'm apparently the Aftermath audience is having issues with hearing me. So I'm wondering if anyone's listening on Aftermath and can hear me, let me know. Okay, well, I guess there's just some issues, so we'll just deal with it when we get off. And for some reason, they can only hear you, Michael. So I don't know
Oh,
why that
really?
would be, but I
Huh.
guess I'll mostly give you the floor, and hopefully, um, something. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that, so that's weird. I'm not doing anything different than normal, but whatever.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So I want to get into some crazy paranormal stories tonight. Because I don't really do that very often on my show, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that'll be a lot of fun. So, anyone in the comments here, if anyone has any ideas in the direction they want this conversation to go ahead and comment. And, if you have any of your own stories, go ahead and comment those. And also, I want to thank Elena for the super sticker. Thank you so much for that. So, Michael, I'm sure you have a lot of interesting people on your shows telling wild paranormal stories. So, I don't know. Can you give us some of your favorite or craziest ones?
To be honest with you, the ones that I would reiterate here in certain fashion would be the ones that I've gone through myself, because I certainly could write a book on what I've gone through. I mean, it's been long standing in certain interactions. There are three prominent negative experiences that I had in my life. Now, one of the reasons this happened, wherein somebody can go into a location, an attachment comes home with them, they experience the results of that, and so they move forward, the attachment moves away, it's just a fleeting thing. I was actually in my investigations that I used to hold back in, let's see, it was 2008, I believe we formed, and 2012 about that we dissolved because of these experiences that I had had. So again, three prominent experiences. Two occurred within the investigations. One actually happened much later on in a house that I moved into. It's very odd to me that these negative experiences are the ones that we talk most about. It almost sort of solidifies the action in a justifiable sense in respect to what somebody's gone through and why it happened to them. So, as I was mentioning, I was looking for the darkest and the most sinister energy that I could find. I had this weird yearning within me that, number one, knew there was courage behind my actions, perhaps foolhardily so. But there was a drive that I needed to experience that and feel it. So when I caught, well, put it this way, when I caught the first attachment and it came to me, it wasn't so much of a surprise as, oh no, oh God, all right, what do we do now? Because it wasn't like something that I had experienced before where it would actually fade away within a day or two. I just wouldn't feel the presence. Everything was nice and still and neutral around me. There was something disrupting the environment, the atmosphere, my own energy, and those around me as well. There's a lot of detail that goes into some of these, but I'll make it brief in way of conversation here. And you guys, if you have interesting questions that go along with it, please let us know. And if you throw it in capitals in the chat, we can see it more readily just to give the suggestion. So the first negative experience that I ended up having with the paranormal was at a place called the Rutland State Prison Camp here in Massachusetts. It's an open state park. For all intents and purposes, people can go up there, ride their bikes, walk their dogs, but it is pretty deep into the woods, and a lot of it is overgrown. With that being said, there are many buildings that have been razed already, so what's left is a bit of isolation, which were essentially just these very concrete structures that were, I mean, the size of the studio here. Literally, if you had that much, you wouldn't be able to lay down in them. There's a root cellar that is actually the most intact structure there, and where most people gravitate towards because it's where they are pulled visually as soon as they step onto the property. And there's a section of tunnels that, I mean, you can jump down into them. It's about 6 feet in way of dropping, and it probably goes for maybe 600-700 feet. Certainly was part of another structure many years ago. But in these particular structures that were there, although I had visited this site many times and with other people, I never really went towards the tunnels except for one instance where I was just sort of exploring for the first time. Didn't detect anything notable, just noticed that I didn't want to step into that hole without noticing it, and stayed pretty clear away. So I went out to film a pilot for the television show that we had slated on a college station up here in Arlington. And the two people that had come with me, the core of my investigations, included only a few of us, really. Didn't want the mix of energy. We went out to this place and we started doing the investigation in the root cellar. Now, prior to going, somebody who knows the area very well and is very versed in this particular work had told me, listen, there is something on the property. Just don't go over to the tunnels because that's where it likes to be. And I said, well, maybe I shouldn't go to, Rutland at all if you're giving me this warning. He said, no, you'll be fine. Just don't go to the tunnels. He likes to stay there. I said, all right. So we stayed away from the tunnels as we usually did anyway. In the root cellar we were, and about halfway through the investigation, about an hour in, I started feeling the air thicken. And as I was feeling this, my investigator on the left, he was from New York, very big guy, had a tough disposition. He was there for the curiosity. He ended up falling on me, losing balance. Now, maybe it was because it was dark, but nobody was moving around for quite some time. And there doesn't seem to be any logical explanation as to why he would have lost his balance so readily. And when I asked him, if he was all right, he said he got very dizzy and felt like he couldn't stand up. This actually is funny because in the next investigation that I unfortunately went on, I ended up having the same experience, but I fell on him, which was a different trade. But again, there's this weird symmetry in way of experiences sometimes, and I try to take note of that. So long story short, we're in the tunnel. This is going on. And I start seeing in my mind's eye some sort of large shadow behind me starting to form. And as it's forming, I can't sort of shake this image out of my, closed eye vision. And then all of a sudden I see two red eyes glowing and it starts screaming at me. What do you want? Why are you here? I mean, at the top of its lungs, as if it had all the energy in the world to do this. It was the most pure rage I've ever felt in my life. And I was incredibly uncomfortable. So I said to the guys,
that sounds wild.
It was unreal. I'd never come across anything like that. And again, this thing was much larger than me, or at least in way of perception. That's how I was envisioning it. So there was some sort of intimidation that was being exercised along this way too. So it must have worked because I felt uncomfortable enough that I said, all right, guys, I'm going to take 5 outside. So these guys, concurred. They'd do the same thing. So we did. And I'm outside. At the time, I used to smoke cigarettes, so I'm out there smoking, and one of the other investigators says, did you hear that? I said, hear what? He said, the footsteps, it just went right by us, went right into the root cellar. I said, no, I didn't hear anything. And he's standing on one side of the road, I'm on the other side, we're only feet away. He said, yeah, it came right over from there, and he pointed over to the tunnels. Actually, he didn't really know much about the layout of the property, so I thought that was interesting. Right from the tunnels, all the way up in the root cellar. And he looks at me and he goes, I'm not going back in there. I said, yeah, you are. That's sort of the mentality I carried back then. I said, you're here to do this. This is what we're doing. You either do it or you go home. Not to be a jerk, but, if we've got something here, we're here to document it, whatever peril it may bring us. Or so I thought. So I went back into the root cellar. I said, all right, we're gonna stick this out for a little bit longer. And as I walked in there is no light other than what we provide. Maybe when you're looking outside through the root cellar, you see the night sky, and of course the lights over Worcester are hitting the clouds, and you're getting a little bit of that reflective light. So that's really all you see. Inside the root cellar, which is very deep, by the way, there is none of that coming through. So as I walked in my mind's eye, it was almost like I was looking at everything in the root cellar, and there was this sickly red light that was permeating everything and was permeating me, and I could feel it. It's hot anger. Wow, this is really interesting. I started not feeling very well, but kind of brushed it off, went back to my original position, and as soon as I did and started asking questions again, all of a sudden I noticed by the entrance to the root cellar a flicker. It looked like a shadow. And so this drew my attention, and all of a sudden, as soon as I put my focus towards this area, I started seeing these shadow figures come in and line the square inner perimeter of this root cellar. And it's still, to me, it really boggles my mind that I was able to see them physically and in my mind's eye at the same time. So I have this overlaying memory of seeing the physical affect, and yet there's an enhancement in way of what was being seen in, what some might consider that imagination. But they moved in very quickly and very soundlessly and surrounded all of us. as they did, and I started realizing what was happening, there were these little pops of light. It looked like there were fireflies inside of the root cellar, but it couldn't be. We were in fall time, so there was no way. It was too cold for anything like that in the first place, but they were all different colors: yellow, green, red, blue, white, pop, pop, pop. And I said, can you see that, to the other guy? And he looks at me and goes, I can see some lights. I said, that's what I'm seeing too. So we pretty much stood there with our mouths open, and as this is happening, very quickly, in walked that shadow right through the door. Whatever you want to call its head, whatever here's on top, was basically scraping the top of this root cellar as it walked in. So again, 9-10 feet.
You physically saw it, or
I physically saw it as I was watching this happen in my mind's eye as well. So it was sort of a dual experience, something that I've never had up to that point, and didn't even think that was possible. At this point, I started feeling very sick to my stomach, and I had noticed that I had a lighter. I still had my lighter in my hand. I'd been holding it for all this time, and I had no understanding that that's what I was doing, but for some reason my hand started to hurt. And I looked down, I opened it, and there was this huge imprint of the lighter. I'm like, well, this is weird. My body's obviously experiencing stress, but I'm not internalizing enough to be aware of what that stressor is. So all this is happening. I looked at both of these guys, said, listen, we're gonna shut it down, because the other guy was still, kind of peeking out, the other side. He didn't want to come back in. So I'm like, this is falling apart. Let's just go home. So I got into the car with one of the investigators, and we're driving out of the property. And I started getting this sinking feeling, and I looked at him. I said, man, something's not right. He goes, oh, yeah, man, I feel pretty weird, too. I'm like, no, man, something's like really not right. And he's like, yeah, oh, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know either. So I went home, and it was the next day. First of all, I didn't sleep well at all. I had very odd dreams, and I just didn't feel like I could settle. Probably never really fully went to sleep. It was the next day that I started feeling that dread grow, and it became bigger and bigger until it just basically encompassed me. And it was at that point that I started seeing, in the back of my mind, that same, what you might call a face with the glowing red eyes, screaming the same thing. What do you want? What are you doing? I got a little nervous. I got scared. It's not something that I had expected to ever encounter in the way of such a personal experience. Usually when you see this stuff on television, just to give an example, the guys have an experience, Zach gets possessed, and they're done, they leave the island, and poop, everybody goes home and has a great day. That's it. It's not the way it really works. In fact, they didn't talk about that for quite some time in way of these ghost shows, that people were experiencing issues, not only those who were there, but even some people who were watching them through the television, because it does open a window regardless. When the words come into your house, who's here? And you have the intention behind it, it starts drumming energy up. There is no time and space when you start talking about these things. So long story short, once again, this particular entity, I identified that it was with me. And so I called up the guy who told me not to go towards the tunnels, because he was really my only saving grace. I didn't know what else to do. He worked with the Archbishop to exorcise people on occasion, so he had some sort of experience, to say the least. So I called him up and I said, listen, I think this thing followed me home. He goes, well, did you go to the tunnels? I'm like, no, I didn't. It came and ran into the root cellar. He started laughing. I said, what's so funny? He goes, well, it must have been hungry enough that it came to get you. I'm like, okay, that's great. Now what are we going to do? He goes, well, I exorcised this particular entity off another investigator 8 months ago, and, we're going to have to go through some things. And he lays out this whole process, and I'm like, all right, let me get back to you on that, because I wanted to feel how this had to be taken care of, because I still felt responsible in some weird way for calling it and never answering it, even though it was screaming in my face. So oddly enough, by the way, I just interviewed that investigator. I happened to find her through the internet. She wrote a book on the experience with this particular entity, an entire book, and I interviewed her on the show few days ago. Her name was Joni Mahan. At any rate, I decided after 3 months of going through this and my energy being drained, and it literally felt like somebody had a knife against your throat and they're walking behind you while you're at work. and maybe you're training for a new job, or maybe you're going to see a girlfriend, or maybe you're going to see family. This is always there, and you are completely disconnected from everything around you. The idea is that, hey, I can cut this, I can pull this anytime I want to, just so you know, and as long as you feel me, I'm there. I can do this. And that's what you walk around with day in and day out. It becomes very, very, very draining, as you can imagine. I was driving to work one morning, and I had a 2-hour drive to get to where I needed to go at this time. I said, I've had enough. I'm going to do whatever it takes, even if it brings me something worse. I'm going to do whatever it takes to, take responsibility for what I did. So the way I'm going to try to explain this is the best that I can in way of what I actually did. A lot of it was intuitive, and I don't have explanation. I just did it. The whole premise was that I needed to turn around, let's say in my mind's eye, through a light meditation or whatever. I mean, I could close my eyes, I could see it. It was there always. Just face it, look into its face, and answer its freaking question. What do you want? So, very nervously, I did this. And as soon as I turned around, it was like the energy locked like this. And I knew that, there was something very powerful in front of me, and to tread very carefully in the way of my word. But I didn't know what I was doing. I've never done this before. I got myself in a situation. I had to explain my way out to an entity that's etheric and possibly demonic in way of poltergeist activity, for God's sake. So I said, listen, and I can't give you this, verbatim, because it happened very quick. It was an internal conversation. I expressed not necessarily, I'm so sorry, nothing like that. It was like, listen, I had a misunderstanding here. And in so many ways, I did apologize to put that one out, because what happens in the spirit world is that when you call them, they will always come to you. Regardless, they will always come to you. It just might not be in the time that you think it's going to be. You're out at that haunted castle, you want to talk to somebody, you call out for them, nothing happens. You go home 2 nights later, something shows up while you're watching Friends in your living room. And you're like, wait a minute, what happened? My house isn't haunted. It's because of what you asked for. They will always honor that. So it's much more prominent to act on a request in the spirit world, and yet we are supposedly held to the same expectation on our end. We just don't always follow through. So back to this, turned around, and I said all these things. And listen, so, I'm sorry for calling you out in this way. I wanted to have this conversation, but I was looking to do it on the site. And whatever I had said, there was a point where I felt like I couldn't say anything else. And it was just going to have to be whatever it was going to have to be. And as I finished, it started kind of moving away like this. Not smoothly either. It was just I was looking at it 1 second, and then it was further away and further away and further, until it was way, way, way in the back. I mean, God, maybe a football field away, if you were to give some sort of symbolic description here in way of the mind. And it sat back there for another month. But it didn't bother me. It was like kind of that second last look. Make sure that, I don't know, maybe I was sincere about what I said. It wasn't an error. I don't know. But after that 4th month now, it completely disappeared, and it went back from whence it came. But you would have thought I would have learned from that, but I ended up having to have another experience. Another great, it was about 4 months later. So...
I've had a really crazy experience in a graveyard myself, and I believe I just finally fixed the problem. To the Aftermath audience out there, I'm so sorry. I hope you can hear me loud and clear now. But I just want to say, with all your wild stories here, that, you being able to work with energy, I know you said that you've kind of practiced in some different modalities. I think people that do work with energies often tend to be people that are more sensitive. And do you feel that people that kind of work with energy are more perceptive to these kinds of experiences?
Intentionally or otherwise, I think so. I think most people who get into energy work in any modality certainly have some sort of sensitivity initially. Maybe it's something they've observed. Never had a name for it. Maybe somebody showed them a certain exercise and where they could feel it physically. Maybe they had an attunement themselves in some way of healing. Most people garner that curiosity from the experience itself. But again, to answer your question, I think, yes, most of those people who decide to embark on that path are already very sensitive, some of them very empathic, some of them very clairvoyant. It only helps sort of bolster whatever their endeavor is with it. But at the same time, we will always seek to cultivate a better understanding of that healing energy. There's a video on YouTube,
Definitely.
and I can't remember the name of the gentleman that it was covering, but long story short, they couldn't. This film crew went to Japan, I believe it was, and they met up with a local healer who had a practice, and they allowed him to be filmed, and he was showing how he was healing people with the energy. And what was happening is, as he put his hands on people, it was actually like an electric shock, and it was causing muscles to spasm, little kids to scream out in horror because they don't know what's going on, although all of this is healing energy. And when asked how he had cultivated this, the first thing he said was, number one, anybody can do this. And number two, the way I've gotten myself to such a strength within this modality is because of a certain ancient meditation that I've been practicing since I was very young. So this is something anybody can get involved with. It's a matter of your own discipline and how far you want to take it.
And that's what I feel is interesting with energy work is there's so many different modalities and so many different ways of going about it. And people think you have to pick up a certain modality and go exactly with the practice, but it's really just your own way of perceiving it and understanding it and tapping into it, I guess. And a lot of people I know that have worked with many different modalities will actually kind of mix different things together, and that's kind of what works best for them. So thanks Third Phase of Moon for the donation here. I have a really crazy story that I want to get into before the end of the show. We only have about 20 minutes left on Aftermath. But
Thank you,
Third
boys.
Phase of Moon says, if you see a shadow figure, should you approach it? I don't think I would. I don't think I would do that. But Blake and Brent, the Cousins brothers, who, if to anyone out there that doesn't know, they're the ones that own or started Third Phase of Moon. I know that you guys would approach it with your cameras, but I don't know if I would do that. What do you think, Michael? What would you
I
do?
say, why not? I mean, we've never had a report of a shadow figure, killing somebody for being curious, or really seriously maiming or injuring anyone. I mean, sure, if it's going to stay there long enough for you to approach it, absolutely, walk right up to it and say, "How you doing?"
Okay, so I'm really sensitive to energies, and this is what leading into one of my craziest paranormal stories is I don't go to haunted places. I don't do stuff like that because of this experience that happened to me and being very sensitive to energies. I don't like to mess with these kinds of things. So what happened to me that kind of is like a graveyard story that I have is, I was always really interested in this kind of stuff. Like I was always into like paranormal stuff. I had this book when I was younger it was called, I grew up in Illinois. It was called Weird Illinois. And I'm sure you know about those books. Like they have one for every state. And it
Mm-hmm.
said Weird Illinois. And it was all the paranormal stories that have been collected from like people in Illinois and like different places and things that have happened in the past. And there's this one story that happened in my hometown that everyone knows about. And my hometown is just outside Peoria, Illinois. It's Bartonville, Illinois. And there's this insane asylum there that was like one of the worst in the country in regards to like, it's like straight up way beyond One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest shit or crap. Sorry. And, I was just very interested in it. I went to all these meetings about it that my library had, and it had been shut down, but you could still go up to it and like look through the windows and everything, and it's like really creepy. They had like chains hanging off the walls and all this crazy looking stuff. So I went there when I was like 10 with my uncle, and I'm like looking around, and I wanted to go because I heard of this story that had happened where basically what happened was there was this guy that came into the insane asylum that was checked in like the 40s or something like that, and or I think maybe before then. I'm not sure what era it was in, but his so when he went to put his name in the book when he was getting checked in, he actually put his job section in the book. So his name was a bookbinder. Everyone called him a bookbinder because his job was a bookbinder, and he accidentally put his name in the job section. So this guy, he was actually like, he could actually kind of function pretty well. He wasn't like too crazy. So they would have him, he kind of made it his own job to bury all the people that had died. So he would dig all the graves for the people that died in this asylum. And it was kind of his thing. And he did this for a while, and he was just kind of known for it in the asylum. And he would always do this thing where every time he would dig a grave for someone during the funeral service, he would always lean against a tree in the graveyard and wail super loudly. And no one ever knew why he did it. He's obviously like a little crazy, you know, it was just kind of his thing. And so this was something that had gone on for years. And when he had finally died, and this is a true story, this was witnessed by like, I believe like 200 individuals, because everyone knew of this guy, and all the doctors and all the, you know, crazy people that were there. They were all at his funeral. And you know, in the old days when they used to like lower a casket down into the grave with like ropes with this like pulley system. So when the people started lowering the casket into the grave, the grave, I don't know what they're called, the grave levy puller people, they start lowering the casket into the grave, and then it bounced up like there was nothing in it, like there was no weight in it. And then everyone looks over and they hear this wailing coming out of the tree that a bookbinder had always leaned against and wailed whenever someone else had died before. And like, I don't know if some people may have seen an apparition, I'm not sure, but there was this wailing coming out of this tree, and you know, hundreds of people witnessed it, and or like, you know, 200 people. So like, I thought it'd be really interesting to, you know, I found the story really fascinating. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I was like 10 years old. So I go to the insane asylum. I'm looking around. I tried to get in. I couldn't figure it out. And then I go over to the graveyard and I went up to the tree and I'm like, you know, this would be cool if I just take some bark from this tree. So I take bark from the tree. And apparently, so something else crazy happened with this tree where at one point someone tried to cut it down and apparently it started wailing. Another point, it was hit by lightning and it still like was fine. So I don't know. But I took a bunch of bark from this tree. I don't know why. I'm an idiot. I just thought maybe it was a good idea. And not even thinking about it. Like at this point, I didn't care. Like I didn't think like all this stuff was really real. I was just like, oh, whatever. You know, it's a fun story. I take it home. And later that night, I'm not even thinking about it. Like, I'm not like thinking, oh, you know, there's this stuff I brought back with me. Like, it wasn't even on my mind. And in the middle of the night, I just got this like really crazy, freaky feeling. Like, it was like the eeriest, just like I felt like there was something there with me. And it was just this really creepy, like eerie feeling. And I just felt terrified, and I did not know what this was, but I was not okay with whatever energy I was feeling. And then I realized, oh my God, I have this ghost spark in this room with me right now. So I grabbed this ghost spark and I threw it out the window. And I literally could not sleep for like 2 weeks. And, you know, I'm actually very sensitive to these kinds of energies, and I can get into way more stories, but I'm just going to leave with you guys with that. To say the least, I don't really go to haunted places anymore. It's not really my thing.
Well, you know, to be fair, you know, when you go to some of these haunted places, you know, doing what you did, wherein you just, you know, decided to take something with you, you have to be given the gift. And I'll give you an example of that. I went to Montauk Camp Hero. This is a very sacred space for many different reasons. And once you step on the property, you realize that you can feel it in whatever capacity you're able to. You don't want to take something that you're not given permission to do. So I was actually given 3 gifts. One was for somebody else, and the other 2, they kind of jump out at you. People say, well, how do you know what you can take? Well, you see something out of the corner of your eye, you look down, you say, oh, you pick it up, you feel it. If it feels like it's calling to you, then you ask, is this for me? I know I'm speaking in etheric terms, you know, we're talking very much on the right-brained interpretation of things, but we have a sensitivity to us if we just quiet and listen to that internal, not the dialogue, but the internal sensation of connection. So at Camp Hero, I was able to bring back, gifted a piece of rebar, which doesn't seem like it makes too much of a impact, but in fact, this stone also was from there, and with that I can create a small rune, which for whatever reason has a lot of energy, and I keep it right here in the studio. But again, I've spoken about this in many different terms. Don't take stuff from these haunted locations if you don't want problems at home.
Well, I wish I could have heard this from you before that event happened to me. But in general, like I actually do feel that I could get into a lot of stories like this that have happened with me, but I've actually in many instances had someone very close to me pass on, and I felt them kind of come to me and tell me things. And it was really strange. And it happened very clearly a few different times with me. And I'm curious to know if you have ever sensed this, but it felt like it was like I could feel them coming in this direct, like I felt like they like came in around
Mm-hmm.
me like this, and I would like hear them. Like it's hard to explain. But have you ever experienced that before?
100%. In fact, most times when I feel something within an environment, and it happens to me when I'm sitting in my room studying, researching, working, doing whatever, it literally feels just like that. It comes from behind and it sort of just creeps up on you like this. And sometimes it comes around the top of your head and you can feel it sort of blanket you. And that's when the skin starts vibrating. That's when you get the internal vibration. It sometimes feels like, you can almost see your body, vibrating at whatever level. Yes, absolutely. To answer your question, that's predominantly the way I feel things when they come in. It's from the back, and if I hear it, most times it will be in the left ear, but occasionally it's in the right. And I know that there's some sort of adage that goes, "You're not supposed to listen to the right ear, but you listen to the left." I don't remember what it is though.
I haven't heard that before. Okay, maybe that's another piece of advice I need from you.
We'll have to look into it. I can't remember the specifics. There was something there though. I don't know if it's more superstition than anything, but we'll look into it.
Yeah. Mystic here asks, have you ever been slimed before? I don't know if that's some sort of paranormal term, but I just started laughing when I saw that. So I don't know if if that's some weird paranormal term, but
Well,
no,
I
I
never
have
made
not
it
been
on
slimed
Nickelodeon,
before.
so never made
I
a
always wanted to try that. That would be a lot of fun, actually. But it would
Ghostbusters was
probably
just
go
a
kind
movie,
of
unfortunately.
nasty.
So
Oh, that's a Ghostbusters reference. Okay, I haven't seen Ghostbusters since I was probably like, I don't know, like 7 years old or something. So that's why I wouldn't know that.
that's fine. It's a classic.
Yeah, he says Ghostbusters should hire you. Yeah, that sounds like, but definitely they should definitely hire you. I don't know. I have some issues going into haunted places, but like you said, like I do feel like I can things will come into me sometime in for me sometimes. So I'm wondering if
Hmm.
maybe I just need to be open to it since I'm already sensitive. Maybe I can help them.
Well, see, I had the same thought when I first started doing the ghost investigation. My bent was going to be that not only would we make contact, but I could, with the clairvoyance, I could try to help them move over. I realized many years going forward that that's a very risky and dangerous endeavor, but there are some people who are more than capable of doing it, but they are seasoned, their experience in that particular kind of connection. Um, so, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about. I mean, here's the thing, though. When I was done with these experiences of negativity, let's say, and obviously, we had spanned some 6, 7, 8 years time that all of this sort of happened. I was very frustrated because I said I love going out to these haunted locations. I love getting into that energy and just feeling things there. I liked exercising the sensitivity. So what can I do that's safer? And I would sometimes even research certain things, and I'd get that same frisson feeling. Something would show up. I'm like, I can't even research now. No, there's got to be something. So that's when I turned back to the world of radio and said, okay, let me start discussing these things. Let's get more open with the topic, get a dialogue going. And from there, I was then able at one point to make the decision that I could go out to some of these highly charged places as long as I wasn't there opening a door. So when you guys watch the documentaries that I put up on DarkHour Paranormal, you'll notice that I'm not walking around, hey, who's here? Hey, can you hear me? It's none of that. I'm documenting the area because I want to be that outside observer. I don't want to be involved in the energy that's there, even if it shows itself to me. It won't be something that I elicited forth, and that's for the protection. But that's the only way I can do it.
That's good to hear. You have so much amazing advice with this. And we only have 10 minutes left here, but I'm curious to know, do you work with any instruments when you do any of this paranormal research? I know all you paranormal guys, the investigators tend to have all these like really crazy instruments. I'm wondering if you could explain some of those in the last few minutes we have here.
Sure. I used to use more equipment than I would ever don now, and I think that that's using the equipment is important for the left brain corroboration. We certainly would like to see the evidence physically if that can be captured, and at the same time, I think that a lot of these devices are toys for paranormal investigators rather than something that we can really say sits within the scientific field, and we can quantify every bit of it. I may be wrong with that, but for myself, I have found, and of course this doesn't really necessarily help anybody else directly, that my body, my intuition, whatever clairvoyance I hold, the sensitivity, the empathic nature that I have, when I walk into a location, I can already feel it. I can determine what's going on. In one video, I actually was able to capture the frisson. I walked into a graveyard where I had already had an experience, and while filming, just some commentary walking around, that same feeling came up right from behind, and it latched right on. I had a coat and a sweatshirt on. I ripped these off, and as soon as I did, all the hair on my arm stand straight up. If I walk out of that space, that's not there. There are some people who will say frisson is directly related to adrenaline, and in some respects it is, but that doesn't explain every time somebody experiences frisson. We talk about electromagnetic fields, and there's obviously that sort of influence too, but then again, if that's the case, then why do spirits have an electromagnetic signature? Why is that such a natural, interwoven part of our reality that we can feel it in a physical form when it doesn't actually exist in that way in respect to arranged molecules? Just very fascinating.
I have a question to ask you. What do you do when you feel that at 3 a.m, waking up in the middle of the night? How do you deal with that?
If something woke me up, or if I just woke up by
Yeah,
myself?
if you experience that energy that is definitely from something paranormal, how do you deal with that personally?
To be honest with you, these days I have found the most effective protection that I have when something actually shows up and it's already beyond the point of holding it back. I call in the energy that is known as Archangel Michael and the Legion of Light. I've surrounded myself with white light. I've, surrounded rooms with white light, and sometimes these entities are just too powerful. They don't care. They'll come in and they'll get angry. They call upon that particular energy, and you can call it whatever you want to. It's still what it is. It's just what I call it. It comes in and it completely vanquishes whatever is here. And it could happen, while I'm out on a site too, if I feel like I'm being attacked in some way. Normally, before I really started implementing that, I would be in bed 2:30, 3, 4 in the morning, usually winding down, reading a book or watching something on YouTube. And all of a sudden, I'd feel something latch on. And it would be to the point where if I were to try to roll over and go to sleep, you can't. Because it's like somebody has a massager against the back of your skull and it's just vibrating. And there's this feeling of sadness, dread, anger, fear, nervousness, anxiety, all rolled into one. And all of a sudden you feel this. I'm recognizing it's not my own. But at the same time, what do I do now? So there have been many nights that I would sleep with the lights on. And I would do that until maybe 6 in the morning if I was able to fall asleep when something like that had happened. It got to the point where I said, again, no more. We got to do something else. This is disrupting my life, and I don't even know what the energy is that's coming in half the time. I'm not sitting around to identify it because it's intrusive. So, yeah, to answer your question, I call on a particular organization, and it has seemed to work for me.
That's amazing. Yeah, I definitely try to stay in some positive light energy whenever that happens to me as well. I have a very strange energy at my place in the hills. Some of the people in the chat here tonight, one of the people in the chat here tonight knows what I'm talking about. And it's weird because I can't quite put my finger on what it is. It doesn't feel like a ghost spirit. It's like I have this guest house up in the Hollywood Hills. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I shouldn't explain the location. I definitely shouldn't do that. But It's got some really weird energy, and it's like I can't quite put a finger on what it is, and I almost feel like it's one of those things where it's not really a ghost, it's more like an imprint in time of maybe something really crazy that happened there, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
imprinted. Yeah, I'm sure you know all about that. I think before we end the show, we only have 5 minutes left. I think we should bring it back to aliens and third phase of the moon, since our discussion at the beginning of the show got kind of messed up with that because of the audio.
No, that's fine. There's one thing I wanted to say on behalf of Phase of Moon. Very recently, we have received some inside information that there may be something coming very soon. I would advise everyone to look out for the next month or two in the way of ufology, whether it be technology, ET existence. We don't know what it might be. But here's the thing. We've all heard that somebody has inside sources. This particular source is a little more unorthodox, has a bit more credibility behind it. So we're very curious with this information we've received. And in that same breath of the word, I want to put the word out there. Just keep your eyes to the skies, because apparently something is coming.
I don't know if I have been informed in this. I think you guys need to keep me in the loop a little more. But, there's been so much in regards to disclosure happening in the past year. And it's crazy because I feel like it was like right when we all kind of came together and started doing this panel stuff. That's right after that, the mainstream media started putting out all this disclosure stuff. And I don't know. I feel like all of us were kind of partly contributing to that. I don't know. Maybe it was a weird coincidence. I don't know, but it was definitely really awesome. And I definitely enjoyed being on the panel. Goofon's in the chat here. It looks like he's about to start as soon as I end here. He's going to be starting on his channel. So I would really like to get us all together on my channel at some point. I know he was saying in the chat here he'd like to get everyone together on his, but I'd like to get everyone together here on Aftermath and my YouTube channel at some point and do a little round table. That would be super fun.
Certainly. I'd be more than up for that.
Awesome. Well, Michael, it was so amazing having this discussion with you tonight. I feel like we didn't really have enough time, so I'd like to have you back on here again at some point. I was doing this whole audio thing, and I really hope we could do this again because it's fun talking with you. We have a similar vibe, I think, because of the whole September 10th Virgo thing. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. What's your moon and rising? Oh, sorry. We only have like 2 minutes left. I got to close this out. I always do that. I get cut out right at the end. So, all right. We'll save this for another time. I'm sure I'll have Michael from DarkHour Paranormal back on here again. And before I go, please go ahead and be sure to check out my shaman spears at shamanspears.com. All sales from there help fund my show. And Michael, you have a minute or so left. Can you go ahead and tell us where they can find you and where they can hear DarkHour Paranormal?
Sure. You guys can find me on YouTube at DarkHour, one word, Paranormal. You can also find me on Third Phase UFO Report, and occasionally on Third Phase of Moon, occasionally on Goofon, occasionally with Dr. J Radio Live as well. And as you see, we're here with Apolla Asteria tonight. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all saw you guys, those names calling me out in the chat. I saw you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your support. Please like and subscribe to Apolla.
Thanks so much, Michael. And yeah, everyone definitely go ahead and check out his channel as well. And check out Third Phase of Moon because we got some awesome stuff coming out there. The Cousins Brothers are releasing new material every day. And hopefully all of us panel members will have some more out soon. And for those of you that are following in the YouTube chat tonight, please make sure to check out the Aftermath FM app. There's a lot of awesome show hosts on there, and it is a platform you definitely want to be subscribed to or following. It's just an app. You can get it at Aftermath FM in your Play Store, or I don't know, whatever Apple does. And sorry. Okay, that ended for Aftermath. I'm so bad at this radio thing. I'm just like, I'm not used to having these rules and time limits. All right. So thanks so much for being here, Michael. And until next time on Apollo's Odyssey. Over and out.
Ciao.